Hi, welcome to WWT's Hands-On Live Lab Workshop. I'm Kristen Schneider, Product Manager of Labs and Learning Paths, and today we're going to be discussing Protect AI Guardian with our lab creators, Chance Cornell and Corey Wanless. So, a couple housekeeping things before we get started here. For the best experience possible, we would love for you to launch this lab alongside us throughout the presentation so you can get in there, tool around, see what kind of questions you have to ask our presenters today. And also, you can be asking chat questions throughout the presentation, so just drop them in the chat and we will address those as we can. So with that, I'm going to open it up to our lab host today, and we are talking with Corey and Chance. So we're going to kick it off with Chance.
All right, thank you, Kristen. Hello, everyone. Again, name's Chance Cornell, and I am an engineer here on the ATC AI Proving Ground Labs and Learning team. In my time here at Worldwide, I've worked with a wide range of cybersecurity tools, including endpoint security, think EDR, XDR. I've done zero trust architecture, a little bit of identity and access management, and my latest adventure is in the realm of AI security. So before we dive into the meat of things here, I first wanted to give a little bit of background information for those of you that might be new to AI security. As we all know, AI has been exploding the last year or two. I mean, it seems like there is new products, use cases, AI models, all the above being released, seems like every day. And that can be very exciting. But from a cybersecurity aspect, that creates a little bit of an issue. And especially in the early times, and it can still be found now, it was a build first, ask questions later kind of approach. And so companies were releasing these products and cybersecurity wasn't really thought of. And it does not take long for bad actors to realize that there is vulnerabilities here and that they can get information from them. So we saw a lot of sensitive information disclosure or DDoSing AI systems or even backdoors built into the AI. And all this is very bad stuff, as you can imagine. But on the other hand, it does not take long for the security analysts and the researchers, the white hats, to go out and realize that there is an issue here. And so they start researching, testing, and developing documentation so that the community can know what are the vulnerabilities here. And what they found is one of the major attack vectors is the AI model itself. From the model, we have things like model serialization attacks, where when a model is saved onto a new system, there is code that is injected into that model. Or we have remote code execution or backdoors that have been built into the model files. As you can imagine, all really bad things, which is where products like Protect AI Guardian comes into play. Guardian is a model scanner and policy enforcer. And essentially what that means is that prior to an AI model being used by an organization, or maybe if it's a third-party model being brought into the organization, that model scanner is going to scan the files of that model and look for indicators of these known vulnerabilities. And we'll get into the details of Protect AI's Guardians once we launch the lab, but I just wanted to set the stage a little for everybody that might be new. As Kristen said, we want to encourage you guys to launch the lab alongside us and work through it as we're also going through it with you. So in case you're unaware, I'm going to walk through how you can launch the lab. From the WWT.com platform, you're going to want to go down to Labs and Learning over here in the bottom left. Once you click on that, you will see a repository of all of our learning paths and labs that we have available out there on the platform today. Now, you might see Protect AI recommended to you down here if you have interests like mine, but in case you do not, you can come up here and click on Explore Library. Then here in the search, type in Protect AI, and you will see the Protect AI Guardian Sandbox down here. Once you click on that, you will see the lab page that will give you a little bit of information about the lab. And then you will see a Launch Lab over here on the right. Once you click on Launch Lab, I believe you'll get a pop-up down here at the bottom. Just follow that and you should be given your ATC Lab Gateway, which is where you will work through the lab. So while everybody's getting set up with that, I'm going to pass it over to Corey to talk about the infrastructure behind the lab.
Yeah, thanks, Chance. My name is Corey Wallace again. I am a technical solutions architect here in the Advanced Technology Center within Worldwide Technology. And like with Chance, work within what we call our AI Proving Ground. And what I'm going to do here is a lot of people ask about like how do we go about setting up this environment, right? So what I'm going to first do while you're getting your lab stood up is walk you through what that looks like on our end, right? So after you launch your lab, you will basically there's a set of automations in the background that's going to give you access to a jump host. And Chance will take you through what that looks like here in a minute. And then not only do you get access to a jump host, you get credentials into our Protect AI instance that will allow you as an end user to interact with Protect AI, run some scans, and kind of go from there. Additionally, Protect AI, where we deploy it is in one of our Kubernetes clusters in part of our AI Proving Ground using a tool called COTS. It's a way to package up applications. That's the way that Protect AI gets deployed within your infrastructure. You can choose to either use the model where you just deploy, when I say model, I just mean the deployment model, to deploy the application in your own shared Kubernetes cluster, or they have a method in which you can actually deploy it in a dedicated space that pre-packages and deploys the Kubernetes components for you. So everybody will be sharing this environment as far as the same Protect AI instance, but you'll all each have your own set of credentials that are unique to you and are destroyed after the lab is done. Just to go over again, COTS is the tool in which deploys and manages the Protect AI Guardian instance. Just showing you a view of it. We do have an update to apply to it, but that's okay. We're going to wait until after this so that you guys have a stable environment to work with. Not going to do that now. As well as updating and checking your license and things of that nature. And then finally, as part of the setup, Keycloak, which is the authentication system for Protect AI, we have built into our automation to provide those accounts I just referenced earlier. Don't worry about the fact that we have a lot of red flags. They're fake email addresses just for the sake of this lab, and we don't need to verify those things, right? So. And then finally, we do document all of how we do these things. So we do have a way of doing markdown and then translating that into HTML page that we can later go back to. How do we set up this environment? What are the configurations steps involved? So that we are all knowledgeable as a team on how to do it. And when you guys ask us how we did it, we have accurate documentation for that. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and pass it back to Chance to kind of take you through the lab experience.
All right. So as Corey said, once you launch the lab, you should see a jump host like this. And we're going to get started by clicking on the Protect AI Chrome shortcut down here. And that's just going to bring you to the login for the Guardian dashboard. And if you scroll down on the first page of this lab guide that you should see off to the left, you will have your username and password. As Corey said, every username and password is unique to your lab instance, so yours is going to be a little different than mine, but these should allow you to log in to the Guardian client. So I'll go ahead and get logged in here. And we will be on the dashboard. I'll try to make it a little bit larger for you guys. So if you've done anything with security tools lately, this dashboard is going to look very familiar to you. It is loaded with an at-a-glance view of kind of what is going on in your environment. So it'll show us, total scans, our failed scans, violations by severity, pretty common stuff for security tools. They want you to be able to at a glance see what's happening. Are we good? Is there problems that we need to address right now? Now in the lab, we first go over the managed policies. And as I said, Guardian is a model scanner and policy enforcer, and the policies are really the lifeblood of the Guardian product. So you're going to want to click on Manage Policies over on the left. Once you're on this page, you'll again be met with some diagrams at the top. These are more policy specific than the ones on the dashboard, so you can see total number of evaluations. That's how many policies have been evaluated against the models. Violations by severity, so what policies have failed, and our most failing policies. But what we're interested in is going to be at the bottom of this page. Here you'll see our policies list. Now there's going to be two lists that we have here available to us. This is first-party models and third-party models. The best way to think about this, first-party are models that maybe your organization has already created or they've already brought into the organization. They're going to be things you already have access to. Third-party models is going to be like your Hugging Face. And in case you're unaware, Hugging Face is like an open source community where people can upload their pre-trained models to it so that you can go and use them instead of having to train your own models. For the purpose of this lab guide and this lab, we focus on the first-party models. So down here, you will see our policy list for first-party models. And you'll see that every single one is given a severity. And you'll see some policies that are related to what I mentioned earlier. We have policies looking for arbitrary code execution or backdoors in the model architecture. Another one is approved file format. So the file format of the AI model actually makes a difference. Some file formats are more secure than others. If you click on one, for instance, this stored in approved file format here on the edit policy, you'll see that you can actually put the approved formats that your organization is okay with passing over here on the right. So these policies do have a little bit of editability for you to change depending on what your organization needs. From here, another important thing to note is that you can click into a policy to get more information on it. So I'll click on this top one, contains no suspicious model components. And here you'll get another policy overview. You'll be able to see the amount of times that this policy has been evaluated against models. And Protect AI will actually give you a little bit of remediation guidance for the policies. So depending on what policies fail, they'll let you know, hey, this is what we recommend. And another important thing is at the bottom, you can see the history of when this policy has been ran. So you'll be able to click into these and determine, what was the model URI, what was the outcome of the policy? And again, when we say success, that means the model did not have any of these indicators of compromise. So another thing that we want to note, and that the lab guide will touch on, is the global threshold. So the global threshold, the best way to think about it is each policy has a severity tied to it. And there's going to be certain severities that your organization cares about most. So let's say you're not too worried about medium severity policies. If a model fails the medium severity, you don't exactly want to fail the entire model itself, so you'll let it pass. If that was the case, you'd come here to the global threshold, click on edit, and then you can change the severity. Pretty much it's what level of policy do you want that if it fails, we get alerted, the scan fails, we don't let this AI model continue, pretty much. So that is going to be the managed policies. And again, these are like the lifeblood of the Guardian product. And with that set, we are actually ready to do some scans. So Guardian allows you to scan in a couple different ways. From the dashboard, you can actually come down here and run scans here. We did not do that in the lab. We found that it was a little bit easier to do the command line interface. So that is what we're going to do. So you're going to want to open up PowerShell here and go to the Guardian Scan CLI module of the lab guide. And we are going to want to enter in these environment variables. This will allow us to start to run scans in this PowerShell. So if I enter those, that is it. We are now ready to begin scanning some models in the environment. So if I scroll down here, the first model that we scan is going to be one that is a safe model. We know that nothing in it is necessarily bad. It's going to pass our global threshold. So again, I will copy and paste this command right here, and then we will hit run. You'll see that Guardian will begin scanning the model, and in a minute or two, not really a minute, probably 30 seconds, there it is, we will see the outcome of the model scan. So I'm going to scroll up here. There's a little bit to look at here, but we'll break it down here. This first section that you see is going to be all about kind of the model scan itself. Was the model scan successful? Did it run into any issues? You can see down here that it scanned 3 files, skipped 45. This is because those files may have just been full of data. You'll see that the scan passed, and you'll be able to see what the model URI is and everything. Then we will go down and we can see this block right here, issues detected. This is where you will see if a policy has failed. And in this case, our policy that actually failed was the model formats. This model was not stored in a file format that we are wanting in our organization. And it'll actually tell you the file format of those 3 files that it scanned earlier. We'll continue scrolling down. We can see here that it tells us that 1 medium severity policy was failed, and it gives more information on that policy right here. So again, we can see stored in approved file format was the policy name. It failed, and they offer remediation, which in this case is to store the model in an approved file format by our organization. And then at the very bottom, we'll see that it registers our global threshold as high, and we pass the model passed the scan. This one would be allowed to be used in our organization. And that is what we explain here on the lab guide as well. So next, we are going to run a model that is not going to pass our global threshold, and we'll get to see a little bit about why. So same process, copy and paste the command from the lab guide, and in 30 seconds or so, it will print the same information. And starting here, we'll see our issues detected. We'll see this one has a lot more issues. Specifically, it found that the model will execute remote code since it contains a certain operator that is in some of the model files. And again, I believe 3 files were scanned, and we found that every single one of those files contains this operator that would allow for remote code execution. And we'll see that this is a critical severity. This one also is not stored in an approved file format. It is stored in Pickle, which Pickle has its own problems and benefits in some cases. So we will see, again, the policy that was violated was detected no arbitrary code execution. Again, because it detected the code, it fails the policy. And down here is where things get different. We'll see that the global threshold is high. We failed a critical severity policy, which means that the scan failed because your organization's security policies. So that failed scan will now show up in our Guardian console as well. I believe if we click over here, we'll see that this number did go up. And we can see some of our most failing policies. Obviously, file format was one that both had, and the arbitrary code execution. So in the lab guide, that is pretty much all that we cover, but we do want to urge you to scan more models. Again, we didn't cover it in the lab guide because it would start to get a little redundant, but if you scroll down to the bottom of this lab page, you will actually see all the available models to you that you can copy and paste these into the command line and run these to see how different scans look, what policies each one will pass or fail, and kind of get a better idea of the Guardian product. And I believe that is pretty much it for the lab. Any questions?
Yeah, I have a question for you. While you were building this lab, what were some of the main challenges and lessons you learned from this lab?
Right. So Corey was the mastermind behind setting up a lot of the infrastructure for the lab. So I know he faced his own challenges there. It is a newer product. If you're in the AI security space, you'll find that a lot of the products are brand new, hot off the press most of the time. In this one, some of the lessons learned and challenges were, again, all of these are new. I had never used a model scanning product before. I didn't really know what is it looking for. How is it going to output this into the command line? So it was a lot of learning what that is and how can I learn what that is and then portray that to others so that they can understand what is going on in this lab.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, as we're deploying Protect AI Guardian into our infrastructure, Chance did say, a lot of the AI tools that we're talking about and investigating and deploying in the AI Proving Ground are relatively new. Some of them are stable and have been out for a while, but some of them are relatively new. And I got the firsthand honor to actually work with the Protect AI group and deploy it inside of, again, that Kubernetes management cluster that I referenced earlier. Specifically, we were running OpenShift for that cluster as part of that deployment. And one thing that OpenShift does is it comes, quote, as they call it, secure by default. And so there's a lot of security things that are enabled by default. And so what we did was, as we were deploying it, there were things that we had to, we identified as having to have changed from a deployment perspective. And the team over at Protect AI was really responsive and quick to turn around and get us something working for that deployment. And it was all done through that COTS system that I showed earlier. So,
very good. For the newbie in the room, what exactly is OpenShift and why would you use OpenShift?
Yeah, so OpenShift is, this is kind of my definition of what OpenShift is. It is an enterprise-ready Kubernetes platform that is an opinionated way to actually manage that. And when I say opinionated, I mean it in a good way, right? With Kubernetes, which is a container management solution, it's an open source solution, Kubernetes itself. And there's a lot of decisions that one has to make in order to correctly manage and deploy it at scale in a production setting. And so what the benefit of running OpenShift is the fact that they have already made a lot of those decisions for you, and they've already tested scaling and the interoperability between all of those individual small products. So that's what OpenShift is a Kubernetes platform.
Great, thank you. We have another question from the chat. Is the pickle format always considered as bad model format?
No, I would not say that pickle is considered bad model format. It's pickle, from my understanding, right? I'm not a pickle expert. I think that it allows for more coding within it, and thus the more coding, it has its own issues within it. Things that I know are safe, we have like safe tensor, you can have JSON file formats. Pickle obviously exists, there is its strengths, otherwise it would not be around. But I do know that there is times where pickle is not exactly wanted. I went to Black Hat this year and they even brought up that pickle, it comes with its own complications.
Okay, great for that, thank you.
Any other questions? Or I believe Corey has set up a demonstration to take a look at what Protect AI Guardian could look like in a production instance.
Yeah, so switching gears a little bit, as we kind of walk through Protect AI, it is helpful for security teams to scan models before they become production. But systematically, how do you actually set that up and what does that look like? And that's where the concept of something called MLOps comes into the picture. And so we have a lab out there called Introduction to OpenShift AI. OpenShift AI is an MLOps solution that sits on top of OpenShift, in which a data scientist and MLOps engineers can go in and build models of their choosing, as well as build pipelines to actually, in a stable, secure way, build models, then test them with Protect AI, and then eventually release them in a single kind of process to streamline it. So if you think about it, MLOps is much like DevOps, but just a little different. So with that, I went on a little side quest this week to showcase how do you integrate the two. So this is not available to you as an on-demand lab today, but maybe in the future it might be something we do release as part of the AI Proving Ground. If you're interested, please do reach out. We do want your feedback. So I went out there, I launched this lab. Again, this specific lab, you can go launch today and understand what OpenShift AI is and what it can do and how to build a model within it, as well as publish and serve it. But today's focus is really, what is that? How does Protect AI sit in the MLOps kind of scheme of things? So when you're in the environment, within this OpenShift AI lab, as you go through it, you get access to a project in which you can actually deploy different things. So the first thing I deployed is what we call a Jupyter Notebook or a workbench, which is a environment that a data scientist can go in and do development work. So if you're familiar with VS Code, it is like VS Code, but a lot of data scientists use Jupyter notebooks in order to kind of facilitate the intermingling of text describing things and then actually the code itself. So what I'm showing here on the screen is actually what they call a data science pipeline or an OpenShift AI pipeline, which is the combination of multiple Jupyter notebooks step by step. So in the existing lab, that if you were to go launch, you get the first box in the workflow for you, which is the experiment and train. So it's the process of training the model. And then the additional step at the end is saving it into a secure location that you can use then for serving it to production. What we're doing in this side quest is adding a step in the middle to integrate into Protect AI Guardian to do a scan of that model. And so if it fails, we want it to exit out and not actually publish that model to production. So if you were to go launch that, you'll see all of this. Specifically, I'll jump to the Protect AI one that we did the side quest on. So you were walking through in the lab that we've been talking about before with Chance is the CLI version of the Guardian client. There's also the SDK, Python SDK side of it. And so we have built that from a Python SDK perspective to showcase that you can do it from either or. So there's a number of functions in here that are wrappers. So just getting down to the meat of it, the Guardian component itself is as simple as 2 lines. We're creating a client, and then we're actually invoking the scan. Obviously, there's data that you send into it. That's all you're doing. And in the end, we're doing an evaluation of the output of what Guardian had. So we're just checking the output. Does it have a success or does it have a failure? Just like you were looking in the UI, we're just looking at it from a Python perspective. And so with that said, I've already launched this once, but I'm going to go ahead and launch it again. We're not going to sit here and watch it because it does take 10, 15 minutes to actually do the training of the model. I'm going to go ahead and save and submit. Okay, just let it go. But while that's happening in the background, I'm going to go back into OpenShift AI and show the pipeline itself. So I'm going to go to Pipelines tab, kind of click down into the pipeline version and say View Runs. And we can see the existing one that I launched earlier. So that one did take 7 minutes, and it was successful. And if I click into it, it'll give me that output. So you have a way of visualizing all of that content. Now, you don't have to run it from the Jupyter Notebook like I did before. Once you have it set up, you can actually set up a schedule, run this on occasion, and build out your own process that your organization would use for this. So.
We do have a question in the chat. I'm not sure if this was directed to Corey or Chance, but how was your experience using AI? Do the machine learning models give you a good accuracy?
Do you want to answer that first?
Yeah, so I'm going to give the consulting answer of it depends. Really, it's about what model are you using. Like if we look at Llama 3.1 or Llama 3 or whatever 3.x is, right? When Meta releases Llama or whatever the current version is, which is the large language model that they release open source, they have many different versions of each model. So even though it's a Llama 3.1, there's what's called an 8 billion parameter, there's a 70 billion parameter, and a 405 billion parameter model. As you step up in parameters, you have the higher likelihood of a better response. So generally speaking, it depends on just the model. But that's also where concepts like RAG come in. And so if you're not familiar with RAG, there was a previous webinar that we did, a live workshop, that we did on this topic with Andy Moser. Please go launch it. We also have multiple labs out there around RAG, including a learning path all about retrieval augmented generation, which is shorted to RAG, because I don't want to say that every day. And what that does is that takes the context of the documentation, the content that you have within your organization, and the platform, whatever you create, whether it's a chat bot, a web interface, it queries that information with your question to find the most relevant pieces of content from your question, and then takes that and embeds that into your question, and then sends it off to the large language model that before may have not given the most accurate response, but now gives a better, more accurate response because you're giving it more context, right? You're basically giving the LLM, hey, here's my question, and here's data that's backing up the question that I have. So,
yeah, kind of to build on that, I have a very recent experience. I have a prompt injection lab that's coming out hopefully maybe next week. And it's kind of like Corey said, it depends. Every model is going to behave differently, even when given the same prompt. You'll be amazed at what it will get correct and the things it'll do. But then there'll be times when you're like, what was this? Like I'll give it, for instance, a system prompt, and I want it to look at this resume and say, hey, this resume was great. But then out of nowhere, it'll say the exact sentence I want, but then embed a not in there, right? Changing the entire meaning of the sentence. So it really does depend on the model and the situation at which you're using it.
Yeah, 100%. And which also gets into, as you're developing models and developing applications on top of the model, it creates a whole new dynamic of needing to test and a challenge to test. Internally, we run what's called Atom AI, which is a very large RAG component with some agent-based components within it. Without getting into too much of the details, they have to make sure if they were to change the version of the model that they're using, the existing use cases that they are using that model for provide the same results or better results than before. And from experience, they have seen some regression depending on what the use case is when they move from model to model. And so you have to design systems in which you may leave certain things running on older versions of a model while you figure out the better way to do it in the new model, so that the things that do work better in the new model you provide that feature back to your business.
That's great. Thank you. Because all of this is so new, you guys have talked about challenges and lessons learned. Is there anything that we should be on the lookout for when testing these new labs in AI?
WWT.com?
Both. Give us for our audience what could they be on the lookout for? Is it just to keep testing, retesting?
Yeah, so in your environment, testing is important, and even more so when we look at generative AI applications, because of the fact that, like I referenced before, if you just change the model, you may get extremely different results. Like we're seeing a lot of use cases right now where we're leveraging LLMs to generate SQL queries to better and more accurately kind of query a database, right? And that's generating SQL queries. So you need to make sure that process in which, when you change the model out, that SQL query does come back as still valid, right? There's challenges all within that. And so really just be on the lookout for, at least from a worldwide perspective on the platform, more tools and labs and articles around MLOps tooling to support organizations around model development as well as application deployment on top of your generative AI systems.
Great, thank you. Obviously, you've both chimed in here today and are working on separate projects all the time because we're releasing new labs and learning paths on a quarterly, monthly, weekly basis, and you're learning new things. So I'd love to give you both the opportunity to talk a bit about what you think you have coming out in the future and what people can anticipate.
Yeah, mine, like I mentioned, the AI prompt injection lab is actually something I'm very excited about. If you don't know, prompt injection is essentially, the way I did it, it was a little bit of gamification. The AI has a passcode, and you are going to try to trick it into giving you that passcode. And we walked through different techniques, like asking it. One of them is asking it to spell the passcode in NATO alphabet. It won't give you the passcode straight up, but if you ask it for NATO alphabet, it will spell it as such. Or pretending that it's opposite day, and it will output this code. Another one, there's a challenge in the lab that I hope to see a lot of different people get results from, even the people that have peer reviewed it. Everything has been different. It will only respond in emojis, and you have to get the passcode from it. So that is a challenge part of the lab that we have out there. Aside from that, we are constantly looking for what is something new in cybersecurity and AI. Again, everything is developing as we speak, and every day it's different. So we're looking into things like maybe doing a learning path around RAG security, or getting into an OEM specific security product. So those are things that we are scoping right now.
That's fantastic. Actually, that's a great point. If there's topic areas and things that you would like to see from us, please drop them in the chat. We'd love to see
Absolutely.
what you're interested in learning about, what might be a challenge for you. And we're always looking for ways to upskill our customers and help them along this journey as well. So, Corey, was there anything you wanted to add to that piece?
Yeah, so one of the things I've been working on is I'm working with our delivery team. So we do have a whole professional services team that builds applications using AI models. And one of the solutions that's being built is, or it has been built, it's called the Digital Human. We have one that kind of gets pushed around to different conferences, and I think it's in Dallas right now. Might be making its way to Texas, or not Texas, that is Texas. Chicago next. I'm not sure where the next location is. But one of the things that I'm working with the team on is actually making a web version of that, rather than right now it's using a thick client that has to be installed. And so look out for that to be on our platform as something you can use. And I said digital human, but I didn't define what it is, and maybe a foreign concept. The digital human is the idea about providing the ability for you to chat with somebody that looks like a real person, and obviously through a video screen right now. And then that is backed by a RAG system that eventually hits a back-end model and a back-end vector database. Again, if you're interested in RAG, go check out that content on our platform. But it is a full solution that's leveraging video translation, audio to text translation, and it's actually interacting with you. So you can ask it questions. It goes and takes your question and asks the RAG system, comes back to the digital human. The digital human changes that text back into voice and then talks back to you.
Yeah, that's I've seen it in person. We've had it at a couple of our events here on site, and it's a very cool tool. It's exciting to see it develop over time. Yep. Let's just one more look at the chat, see if we have any final questions here. And any last minute thoughts from anyone? No? Have we covered it all?
I think we covered it all. This is a shorter lab. There are things that we could potentially add in here. Jupyter Notebooks is something that is being used a lot now. We thought about adding that into the lab. So that may come out as an update. Protect AI as a partner has many other products that are out there. We'd love to get our hands on those and eventually have labs for those as well. But
yeah,
I think that's about all I had.
That's great. I know we have quite a few new AI labs and learning paths coming out here in the near future. Be on the lookout for those. Please visit www.com to see. We have 120 plus learning paths and learning series available. We also have 240 plus labs for you to check out. And these are all resources for you to upskill and be able to test your knowledge at that. You can go on, once you go through a learning path, you're able to take a quiz. If you earn an 80% or higher, you can earn your certificate and badge, and then, brag about it. Share it on social media, let your bosses know, let all your colleagues know, and challenge them to keep up with you as well. So thank you all so much for joining us today. Again, go in, keep relaunching the lab, testing your environment, and we look forward to seeing you at our next live lab workshop.